I'm going to throw this one right out from the start. Everything about the design of One Step from Eden makes it a game that I should not really enjoy. There's the deck building aspect, never been a huge fan of that, and the ridiculously fast-paced action that makes your fingers go numb. Well, I'm pretty terrible at that as well. And yet, despite this, One Step from Eden turns out to be the most addictive, hard-to-play indie games I have tried out in a long while. Let's talk through it. Just give me 10 seconds to say quickly, if you could leave a comment about One Step, that would be awesome. I am really curious to see what other people are thinking about this one. So I'm going to assume that you've never heard of One Step from Eden or know a few details about it and give you a little bit of explanation. It is said to be heavily inspired by Mega Man Battle Network, which are games I've honestly not played myself, so I'll take everyone else's word for it. What I can say is that it brings together a tactical game with a large depth of mechanics that is still enjoyable for someone like me, who is pretty hopeless at that side of things. One Step from Eden is all about your battlefield that all the action takes place on, 16 tiles for you to work your way across and 16 for your enemy to spend most of their time. Although I have to say some of the abilities allow you to temporarily slash over to their side, and some of the enemies seem to not care at all about whose half it is and just wander on over and try to kill you. You survive or win the stage by taking out all the enemies before they get to your health points down to 0, and your reward for each stage victory is a selection of cards to choose to add to your deck. Leveling up brings artifacts that give permanent or temporary awards, and you have the ability to purchase and level up different cards and artifacts if you choose to travel along a path that has the shop icon present. It's pretty standard for card-based roguelikes here. Your strategy is to choose along the way what kind of deck you want to build, and try to optimize and choose cards that fit into that domain. I really am drawn towards using fire and shield cards, and this is something you can utilize. I was a bit lost on my early runs and went searching for some advice about how to play more effectively. And one tip I found on Reddit from the developers was to know when to skip choosing a card to avoid overcrowding your deck. This really helped me out, as intuitively knowing what your spells are going to do without having to pay more attention to them than the icon is going to be very important in making through some of the hard rounds. One Step from Eden plays well, and you will have no issues with the controls, perhaps beyond the sore thumbs that I get from the boss battles. And there's no mechanics or bugs that scream broken game, so all that side of it is ticking boxes for a newly released game. So what makes One Step from Eden so good? Let's jump into that. The simplicity of the difficulty in One Step from Eden is awesome, and allows you to have a full feeling progression as you make it through parts of the levels that seemed impossible earlier. I should mention here that I am by no means approaching this as an expert. I've spent the majority of my time with the game getting destroyed, and have only managed to unlock 2 extra characters so far without a single victory. But boy, unlocking those 2 after hours of struggle was such a good feeling, and managing to do so with a 1 HP victory, whilst Hazel was in their finishing animation, well, that made it even more sweet. And hey, I even got an achievie out of it, so thanks for that. There are still parts of the early game that I find more difficult, and I cringe thinking about each time Seliki kicked my butt with their ice spears, but I can already feel that I'm getting much better, and things like reaction speed and knowledge of spells and deck paths are starting to shine through. Talking of the characters, or the boss levels, they are each so unique and interesting with different attack patterns that make the fights so enjoyable. Unless you have much better reactions and mechanics than I do, you need to study their patterns, and this takes a few defeats to get the handle of, but I can definitely say I like the different styles of each fight that make them feel so different. Violet's music and rhythm battle is a great example of this, and even though Seliki destroyed me early, I actually don't mind facing off against them now that I've memorized most of their patterns. The amount of hours I've thrown into One Step from Eden in such a short time is testament to how good of a game it is. And this is mostly all through playing Saffron. As you defeat some of the bosses at later levels, you get the ability to take them through the levels, and just play so differently and uniquely that I could easily see people dropping tens if not hundreds of hours into this game without even realizing. I said very early that this game is perhaps one of the most addictive and yet frustrating games that I've ever played, and I'll stick with that. However, I have to add that it's not frustrating because anything is going wrong, just because I managed to find different ways to choke leading on that path to victory. There's a magnitude of mechanics and strategies that other people would no doubt do a better job at explaining, so for now I'll leave with a simple comment. One Step from Eden is a cracking game that you should definitely give a play.